And joining us now here in our Washington bureau with his perspective is Marc Short, former director of legislative affairs in the first Trump White House, former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence, and now board chairman of Advancing American Freedom. Marc, great to have you back on Bloomberg TV and radio. Capitol Hill, where Tyler was earlier today, now probably pretty empty because all of the members of both chambers are on recess now for a week with no DHS funding deal having been reached. A shutdown Saturday looks all but imminent. When they come back from recess, how do you see us getting out of this one when it seems that the two sides are still incredibly far apart on ICE reform?
They are far apart on ICE reform. I still think that there'll be, I don't think this will be an extended shutdown. I think the reality is the Democrats really could overreach here. I don't think it's accidental that Tom Homan's press conference was today to announce withdrawing from Minnesota. I think, the killing of the two protesters there, I think is what galvanized the Democrats to have their resistance to DHS funding. Now that they've announced they're withdrawing, it's going to be hard for them to explain when you go to the airport and there's TSA problems or other challenges, why they're holding up funding for DHS. And so I would anticipate that this one gets resolved when they get back.
That's really interesting, Marc, because I would have asked you how this announcement by Tom Homan might impact the debate here in Washington, but the debate is impacting Tom Homan.
I think so. I mean, I don't think that the timing of that press conference was accidental. And I think it probably was smart of the White House to get in front of these Hill negotiations and take that issue off the table.
Well, when we consider the timing here, knowing the midterms are 9 months away, that is probably factoring into some of this. So politically speaking, you talk about Democrats overreaching. If there are problems at the airport at TSA, you think that this blowback will be more so on Democrats than on Republicans necessarily, who are trying to calculate keeping a majority?
Well, Kayleigh, I think Republicans have their hands full in trying to maintain a majority. Yeah. I think that the president's key issues in 2020, I think, were the border and the economy, and he's upside down on both now. So I think the midterm is going to be a huge challenge for Republicans. But having said that, on this particular issue right now, again, I think that the Republicans have taken the big issue off the table. And so if Democrats continue to pursue this effort to shut down the government no matter what, I'm not sure it's going to accrue to their benefit politically.
Interesting. 6 Republican defectors on the vote against Canada tariffs last evening. Democrats are promising more. They'll turn to Mexico and other countries. Obviously, the president's going to veto whatever lands on his desk. But how difficult is it for Republican members to have to take a vote on this repeatedly in this midterm cycle?
Well, look, let's keep in mind that the power to tariff and the power to tax belongs to Congress.
That's right.
The Constitution is crystal clear on this. And so the fact that there are only 6 Republicans who voted this way is pretty astonishing, frankly. But I think that most of these members all act in their own self-interest. There's not a greater purpose in many cases. And so for right now, I think that their interest will be to say, how do I get through primary season? I don't want the president primarying me, which he threatened to do after the vote, which is a pretty shocking revelation itself. But so for them, they're going to act in their self-interest in the short term. But as you get past primary season, I think you'll see more and more Republicans defecting because at that point, they're going to want to show independence from the president if his numbers continue to stay low.
Well, let's not leave that point. The president threatening his own Republican majority potentially with some of these members. You need someone like Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania, no?
Well, not do you need them? I think that this president has shown a willingness to attack his own party in ways that other presidents haven't. But I think it's also short-sighted when you look at what the midterm trend is and how ugly it looks right now for Republicans. The president's going to be faced with investigations and impeachments coming into the second half of his administration. If you're basically threatening to get rid of these people and they get replaced with Democrats, you're not helping your own cause. Like the threat may sound strong in the moment, but it's really not going to be helpful to them if instead of some of these Republicans, they have Democrat members there in the second half of the administration.
Really interesting. As somebody who knows the Hill and its relationship with the executive to the extent that you do, I'm wondering your thoughts, not on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, but what we've learned in the last couple of days, when lawmakers go into that reading room at the Department of Justice, they claim that their keystrokes, that their downloads are being recorded, that they're effectively being watched by the Department of Justice. The Attorney General even showed up on Capitol Hill with a list of searches that Pramila Jayapal had conducted. Should they have been told in advance? Is this a breach of trust?
I think that the trust has already been broken at this point.
Or should you assume that when you're at DOJ, your actions are being recorded?
I don't know. I think as an elected member, you should assume that you have that privacy. But again, let's step back and remember that It was the Trump campaign that really made this a central issue in the campaign. They're the ones who before deciding this is actually a hoax, they're the ones that told Americans that there's all sorts of nefarious activities from prominent Democrats, and we're going to uncover it all. And so they've created this dynamic and the drama that's playing out now.
It's a sticky situation.
Well, it's also interesting to see Howard Lutnick, make the position that he severed relationships when he realized how seedy it was in 2005, but then decides to go on a family vacation.
Yep, wife, children, and nannies.
Wife, children, and nannies.
On the island. Marc, it's great to see you, and thanks for the insights. Marc Short, former Chief of Staff, Vice President Mike Pence, Board Chairman Advancing American Freedom, former Legislative Affairs Director at the White House. We turn to the